back to Ghost Powered Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today I give you 10 horror movies that you can check out right now on Starz. So this week I took a deep dive into the Starz streaming service and found you guys 10 horror movies that I highly recommend. So real quick before we get into this, I just want to give a big thank you to Street Threads for hooking me up with these awesome sunglasses. Definitely go check them out. They're in the Arden Mall in Sacramento, California. Also, if you could do me a favor and just hit that like button before we get into this, because that really helps the channel out so much, way more than you realize. And with that, let's get into this list.
This weekend, you will be our guests. Here, anything and everything is possible.
Alright, so kicking this list off is not what I would consider a great movie, but it's a great movie as far as a dumb horror movie that's good for eating popcorn, maybe sitting around with a few friends, talking shit about. But don't get me wrong, in no way am I saying that this is a good horror movie. I'm just saying I think it's a fun one you could have a couple beers with, maybe with some friends, and just have a good time checking out. But I think it's just dumb enough and cheesy enough that you can still have a good time with it, but just don't take it serious. Take it for what it is and just have a good laugh.
We were brought here to be a part of something else.
I got it. I want it. I got it.
I'm your friend.
I've always wanted to hear you say that.
Next up is Jennifer's Body.
Why don't you just come by my place?
Well, this is random.
This isn't really your house, is it?
We can play mommy and daddy.
No way.
And I think this is a way better movie than people give it credit for. In the last few years, I have seen more and more people starting to give this movie some love, but I know when it came out, it really fell flat. I think mostly because they just put everything on Megan Fox's sexy hotness. So don't get me wrong, I think she was hot, definitely, but there's a lot more to this movie, in my opinion, than just a hot Megan Fox. This has actually a pretty intricate story with a lot of twists and turns. There's a much deeper story to this than you would expect, and I think because of the marketing, people just took it for just kind of this dumb movie. I definitely think that there's more to this movie than just some stupid high school horror movie. I feel like there is a better script here than that. There is some solid acting, some really cool special effects, actually has some pretty scary moments here and there, and just in general, it's actually a pretty solid little horror movie. One that if you haven't seen in a really long time, I think it is worth a rewatch. And if you've never seen it, then definitely check it out.
Thought you only murdered boys.
I go both ways.
I will finish you if I have to.
Okay. You can barely finish gym class.
Next up is another dumb one, and that's Lake Placid.
It has existed since prehistoric times. It was worshipped by primitive cultures. It can kill a man with one crushing bite.
And by no means am I trying to say that this is a high quality movie. This falls into that same category, so to speak, as Fantasy Island. And it's just a big, dumb creature feature type of movie that I think is absolutely a blast. I feel like this movie is just old enough at this point that I can appreciate the charm and that cheesy, goofy, campy early 2000s that it has going all over it. I mean, this is really the epitome of that early 2000s crappy CGI, overloaded with these big creatures and really hokey acting and whatnot. But I feel like this is a movie you can have a lot of fun with. It falls into that same category as movies like Anaconda or even Snakes on a Plane. This is just a fun, stupid creature feature that I absolutely love.
Go under! Lake Placid.
Next up is John Carpenter's most overlooked movie, in my opinion, and that would be Vampires.
Have you ever seen a vampire? Forget whatever you've seen in the movies. It's not like they're seducing everybody in sight with cheesy Eurotrash accents, all right? They don't turn into bats. Crosses don't work. You want to kill one, you drive a wooden stake right through his heart.
So you always hear about John Carpenter. He is definitely one of the godfathers of horror and has done so many amazing movies. And I'm not at all trying to say that this movie is one of his best, But if you're someone like me, who absolutely loves John Carpenter and loves the style and flair that he puts on all of his movies, and you're not familiar with vampires, then I definitely think you should get acquainted with it. Even if you're someone who's not a huge John Carpenter guy, but has seen a few, this is just a really cool little vampire movie. It's not 80s, it is into the 90s, so there's kind of this weird 80s bleeding over into the 90s effects that you see in this movie, but it's still definitely 90s. It just is an enjoyable movie to me that takes a different look on vampires, and they're creepy and cheesy at the same time. This movie blends that creepiness and that cheesiness together in a really fun way. I think if you're someone who's not a big John Carpenter fan, you still could like this, but if you're a fan of John Carpenter, then this is definitely a must.
Step behind us! Come on, come on!
From the master of terror comes a new breed of evil. John Carpenter's vampires.
Next up is a movie I did a review on just a couple weeks ago, and that is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
You have been chosen, Buffy,
To do what?
to stop the vampires.
Does Elvis talk to you?
So you hear a lot in the horror industry about the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It is beloved. It's in that same category as Supernatural and Charmed and all the rest, right? And I'm not at all trying to diss on it and say there's anything wrong with it, because I have definitely enjoyed my share of Buffy over the years. But in a lot of ways, the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer has kind of faded into oblivion. People just don't talk about it as much anymore. And it's the reason I did a review on it. This is just kind of add my 2 cents and just do my part to add it back into a little bit of some horror conversations, because it really is just a great movie for a fun teen early 90s, late 80s, early 90s kind of movie. This is not a serious, this is not a legendary horror movie. I'm not saying that. But to me, this is a great cult classic type of thing. It really is. I mean, if you look at the cast of this movie, it's absolutely amazing. I'm not going to sit here and rattle them all off, but so many people that were no name at the time and have gone on to have huge careers. You got to go into it with the right frame of mind, just going into it to have fun, which is what I've said on a lot of these movies on this list, because I think, like I say at the end of all my videos, sometimes people can take horror just too serious. And don't get me wrong, I love the hell out of serious horror movies with amazing stories and scripts and, A24 kind of stuff. But I also have a lot of fun with junk food horror movies that are cheesy and campy and are really just created to just have fun with. And this is one of those movies that is created to just have fun with.
You're not like other girls.
Yes, I am.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
You didn't even break a nail.
Next up is Sleepy Hollow.
I am Constable Ichabod Crane, sent from New York to investigate murder in Sleepy Hollow.
How much of your superiors explained to you?
Only that the 3 were slain in open ground, their heads severed from their bodies.
And I have such a soft spot for this movie. I think it has a lot to do with how it looks, because it just looks absolutely gorgeous. But I've just always absolutely loved this movie ever since it came out. It's one of my very favorite Johnny Depp movies, and I'm not saying I'm a huge Johnny Depp guy, but I definitely have enjoyed him in a number of movies. My favorite is probably The Ninth Gate, but Sleepy Hollow would definitely be right up there. This movie is just, like I said, gorgeous. So much charm to it. I love the cast. Christopher Walken is amazing. He's always amazing, but he's really amazing in this movie as the Headless Horseman. This movie has a lot more gore and really goes for it a lot more than I was expecting going in, and it definitely earns that place as a horror movie. But it isn't like a super serious kind of horror movie either. It's one that's just more low-key horror, one that is fun for the most part, but does have its creepy elements and its gory elements, and it is one that I have always loved and definitely recommended. Next up is Stephen King's Christine.
Ride is over. We're not finished yet!
And Christine is such a cool movie. I think it's always overlooked, and it is, in my opinion, one of the best Stephen King adaptations. So I'm not comparing this to the book because I haven't read the book Christine. I'm just looking at it for what it is. As far as a movie goes, it is one of my favorite Stephen King movies. I really enjoy how different Christine is compared to a lot of other horror movies. The fact that your villain, you kind of watch slowly be created by the car, which is, I guess, the true villain. But either way, there's kind of this symbiosis between the two, and you get to watch your character slowly turn into this villain who by the end is this murderous, awful dude. But early on, you're really feeling for the guy. He's kind of dorky, kind of dweeby, and wanting to be more, and we can all kind of relate to that. I also really love the look of this movie, on top of the fact that I absolutely love the car, and I just love these 80s horror movies where you see practical effects. You're not seeing CGI. So there's a lot to love in the movie Christine, and I do highly recommend it. Next up is the 1986 classic, The Fly.
There is a limit, even to the imagination, where our greatest creations meet our deepest fears.
And I do appreciate the older classic black and white version of The Fly. It has a lot of really uncomfortable moments, especially the ending of that movie. And if you enjoy classic black and white horror and you've never checked it out, I highly recommend it. But this movie is a classic in its own right at this point, and I absolutely love it. David Cronenberg is at his very best with body horror in this movie. This is the first movie I ever saw Jeff Goldblum in, and I've been a huge fan of his ever since I saw this movie when I was a teenager. He just is phenomenal in this role. His transformation into this monster, into the Brundlefly, is just amazing. Because as much as the stuff that David Cronenberg pulls off, the special effects and all that was done, and it's all practical, and it is really like a master class in a lot of ways in practical effects for the time. But as much as all those special effects are amazing to watch, without Jeff Goldblum just absolutely murdering this role, it wouldn't have the same power that it does have. There is so many iconic scenes in this movie, and the very end of this especially is just so powerful. And I think this movie is a must for anyone who's younger and recently enjoyed movies like The Possessor. Then I definitely think you'll love this movie as well.
Help me. Please, help me.
All right, now we go to Jeepers Creepers.
You know what I just thought of, right?
Kenny and Darla.
You believe that story?
That they had to go looking for her head.
They only found the car.
They never found her head.
And I've recommended this movie numerous times, and I know that this movie gets a lot of hate because the director, who I will not say the name of, is absolutely a pile of shit. And I'm in no way arguing that, or in any way saying that you should give him your money. The fact is, this movie's been out for a long time now, and I really doubt he gets very much, if any, amount of money from you checking this out on Starz. So no matter what, this is one of my favorite horror movies from the last 20 years. I'll never forget the first time I saw this, because it is absolutely a great, thrilling ride from beginning to end. In a lot of ways, this movie is two separate things. It's like the first half is this murder mystery, and then the second half is this creature feature. It's also recently been talked about that a Jeepers Creepers 4 is in production. So if you're someone who hasn't seen Jeepers Creepers, I recommend getting caught up, especially with the first one. After the first one, the second one's pretty good, but the third is really a pile of crap. But either way, it is fun to watch, I guess. But I do recommend getting caught up on the Jeepers Creepers franchise before it drops if you haven't. It's a really creepy, great creature feature that I highly recommend.
You think he's dead?
They never are.
No! Jeepers Creepers.
All right, and last up on my list is the 2013 Evil Dead. And I've gotten in a lot of arguments over the years with people about this movie, and I get it. A lot of people just don't understand how you could take this beloved franchise that's really set up on camp and humor and just the fun side of horror and make it this brutal, serious type of horror movie. But I look at it the other way, and I absolutely love that and appreciate that, because to me, if you're gonna redo or reboot any loved horror franchise, you gotta bring something new to the party. Because there's nothing I hate more than when someone just simply clones this older movie and just remakes it. Like, take the 1998 movie Psycho. I mean, what a pile of shit and waste of money and time that was. Okay, so to me, if you're gonna do something with a beloved franchise, to me, you should just really bring something new to the table if you're gonna do something like that. For instance, a lot of people did not like the new Wrong Turn, and I did, because to me, it's the same type of situation. As much as I love the original Wrong Turn, to me, if you're gonna do a reboot, you're gonna do something new with it, then do something new with it. Don't just rebrand the same crap and just do a cash grab, and that's what so many other franchises do. And me personally, I would much rather see something like the 2013 Evil Dead. This movie is so creepy, so brutal, goes for it completely, does everything that the original Evil Dead did, but just in a totally straight way, and is absolutely terrifying, in my opinion, on how it's done. I'm not saying that this is a perfect movie, but I do enjoy it tremendously, and if you're someone who hasn't checked it out and you've just heard a lot of shit about it, I'd give it a chance. I would watch it for yourself and make up your own mind.
We're gonna get you, not another piece. Time to go to sleep.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for me today. Please leave your comments down below. I absolutely love when you guys give me recommendations. They really do help me out. And also, if you could do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel and when I post videos like this. And I post videos like this at least 2 times every week. I also want to give a huge thank you to my patrons, because your support seriously means so much to me. And if you would like to find out more about becoming a patron, the link is down in the description. And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember guys, horror can be fun. I will see you guys next time.